dependent on low-wage manufacturing. Over 500,000 jobs were in textiles, furniture, and tobacco, but the salaries weren't high, and our state's per capita income was only 80% of the national average. The relatively new Big Five are over twice that share of our state's output today, creating a new North Carolina in the 21st century. These are the kinds of things you can read about every day in the business pages of North Carolina's newspapers. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the North Carolina Research Campus, which has been established on the former site of Cannon Mills in Kannapolis, a public-private partnership with our state's universities whose vision is really quite amazing: to advance biotechnology and to become the world's epicenter of nutrition and disease research. I'm sure many of you have heard of Quintiles Transnational, a drug research organization that helps the world's largest pharmaceutical companies do clinical trials. They've just recently opened a 10-story building in the Research Triangle Park and have hired 3,000 people. Bayer Crop Science has announced a new research and development center in Morrisville. An aviation company, DRS Technical Services, is expanding in Elizabeth City. German auto parts supplier Continental is expanding their plant in Henderson County and adding 338 new jobs. Google, as we know, is now in North Carolina in a $600 million data center in a former furniture manufacturing plant in Caldwell County, and they will create over 200 jobs over time. We now also are reading that Apple will build a new data center here in North Carolina in one of our more distressed western counties, creating 50 full-time new jobs. Professor Walden says that North Carolina is now part of the international economy, where money, ideas, products, and even labor through immigration and offshoring move more easily around geographic and political boundaries. Economic opportunities have multiplied. The potential gains from success have never been higher, but those who are not prepared or who have been unlucky will quickly fall behind. So having discussed the gains, let's turn our attention to some of the losses. North Carolina has lost hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs in the big three of furniture, textiles, as well as in tobacco in the last 15 to 20 years. This has been exacerbated by the worst economic downturn since the Depression, and our unemployment numbers this summer rose as high as 11.1%. Fortunately, these numbers are gradually coming down, but there was one point earlier this year in which North Carolina had the fourth highest unemployment rate in the country. But while the numbers are decreasing, not everyone is benefiting equally. Caldwell County, that we just mentioned with the arrival of Google, still has an unemployment rate of 15.4%. And there's something new called the AP Economic Stress Index, which looks at a combination of unemployment, bankruptcy, and foreclosure. They have declared that Rutherford County is the 13th most economically stressed county in the United States amongst counties with more than 25,000 residents. The reality, according to the Institute of Southern Studies, is that, and I quote, "While North Carolina has gained jobs elsewhere, the relentless assault on the state's manufacturing base points to a deepening divide between the two North Carolinas, the part of the state that are moving economically forward and those that are falling desperately behind." How do we overcome this dichotomy, this reality of two North Carolinas? Michael Walden suggests that there is a clear connection between economic growth and education that is likely to continue and even strengthen. The spread of technology in the workplace will require that workers not only use these technological tools, but that they then also analyze, interpret the results of their work. In their book, The Race Between Education and Technology, Harvard professors Claudia Golden and Lawrence Katz concur. They emphasize an ongoing and relentless race between technology and education, which, as technology changes, means that demands for skills change. Those who can make the adjustments, as well as those who can gain these new skills, are rewarded. Others are left behind. You see the pattern? The gains and the losses, the gains and the losses. It's everywhere. In this environment, I believe that the value of North Carolina's libraries and the services that we provide have never been more important to the people and the communities we serve. Whether we are serving those who are moving forward in this new knowledge economy with highly sophisticated electronic information service or whatever, or those who are falling behind with basic computer classes and the acquisition of new skills, we have a serious role to play. But how do we do this when we ourselves are experiencing some of the most drastic cuts to our own resources in decades? Let's look around at libraries in our state for a little bit and see what we can see. What you will see are some fascinating gains and losses. And I would like to think that in some way there's a polarity here, just as Emerson has suggested. The UNC system libraries across our state, like all of us, have suffered cuts with staffs and collections. Here in Greenville at East Carolina University, in particular, cuts have been projected as high as 17.9%. Is Larry Boyer here? Larry sent me these statistics and said that the good news is, even though this will mean some drastic cuts, it may mean cuts in operating budget, acquisition, student employment, it looks as though some of these funds will be reinstated, but not all of these funds. So still, this library is going to have some really hard work to do this year, just as many of us do, in learning how to incorporate these cuts into our operations.